You're listening to the Monday Night Community Show with Daniel on BRFM.
This is the Daniel Monday Night Community Show on demand through YouTube. Thank you very much for choosing to listen to us through this method. If you'd like to keep up to date with when I add new interviews, then subscribe to this channel.
Tears of the Devil by John Fryer, with Nigel Peaver, Richard Graylin, Jeff Bainham and Robin Ingram as the banker. The play is set in a fictional White House in the early years of the 21st century.
And considering the times they've stood with us, we can hardly turn them down, can we?
That would undoubtedly send out a bad signal around the world, sir.
Oh?
Stand with us when we need help to give the impression of a coalition, and then stand by yourself when you need our help.
Point made.
And the British always stand by us. I'm just saying we should be ready for when the phone call comes, Mr. President, because come it will.
No chance we could persuade them to give sanctions a try?
When have we ever given sanctions a try and they've worked?
Cuba? Iraq?
Mr. President, we both know Cuba has been left to smolder and fester as an example of what happens if you defy Uncle Sam. And Iraq suffered sanctions just so we could keep their oil on the back burner until we needed it.
Yeah, I wish you wouldn't say these things. You know how the truth often upsets me.
I do apologize, Mr. President. I should have known better.
It's okay. It was an easy mistake to make.
Seriously, though, sir, the call from London will come.
Yeah, I know.
We should be ready for it.
Well, let's see if the call comes first.
When it comes, Mr. President, when it comes.
Enjoy your morning, you warmongering SOB.
The same to you, sir. You peacenik, lily-livered liberal.
I'm assuming that was said with all due respect.
But of course, Mr. President, may the people continue to bow down before your eternal greatness and your presence be a light to the generations around the world who look to Washington as the cradle of all things military. I meant, of course, civilization.
May your rockets and missiles continue to enjoy ever more accuracy and favorable reporting on CNN.
Oh, Mr. President, I am sure they will.
Yeah, so am I.
If you no longer need me, sir, I have blood and destruction to attend to.
Please don't let me stop the good work of the Department of Defense in its ongoing mission of global conquest.
At last, someone understands.
Be gone with you, you godless monster.
Thank you, Mr. President.
And keep those targeting computers warmed up and ready to go.
Mr. President, since 1945, they have never been cold.
Have a good day, gentlemen.
Good day, Mr. President.
Speak to you later.
Now it's started.
Oh, it started a long time ago.
Salam alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Ali, it really has been too long.
The last 15 years have not been easy for us.
Here in America, I don't think they've been so bad either.
You are right. Here in the US, we have lived well, but we still dream that one day we will return to our country. Maybe it is nothing now, but a dream.
I know you have not been idle during your long years here in the US.
I have not.
Numerous times you have supplied our intelligence agencies with information about up-to-the-minute movements inside the Syrian government, even though you have not been there for many years and have no contacts within its service.
You are right. My contacts are not known. That is not known to you.
Neither do we have any way of verifying the information that you provide.
David, are you telling me that you are planning to stop the funding of my organization?
The funding for the independent Syrian front will continue.
Thank you.
But what we ask, what we need, is more information connecting the Syrian government to a terrorist group, the Ansar.
How accurate does the intelligence need to be?
I'm sure you will not tell us any lies. After all, you speak to so many people. I'm sure someone somewhere has heard something.
I'm sure somebody has.
I look forward to reading what you have.
I have also been occupied with something else.
Oh?
I just happened to attend last month's meeting in Houston for the United American Oil Producers Network.
I've heard of it.
No, your own company, Universal Petroleum, was also in attendance.
My company?
Am I not right? Do you not own the largest controlling portion of the stock? 38%, I believe.
Go on.
May I suggest, as I did to your representatives in Texas, that you look at the Syrian oil fields as U.S. companies did the Majnoon and Naramur fields in southern Iraq, and exploit them?
And why would we wish to do that?
Because U.S. consumption currently stands at 21 million barrels a day. Your domestic crude will drop by 12% over the next 10 years, and at least 2/3 of your requirements will need to be imported. 2.6 million barrels come from Saudi Arabia every single day. To remain in power, the current regime in Riyadh pays what can only be described as bribes to various groups, including the Sunni sect, the Wahhabi, who backed numerous U.S. enemies, including your friends, the Taliban, who secured the free flow of oil from the kingdom, who now spend $50 billion a year keeping your military stationed in the Middle East. You pay the Saudi king's security bill just to keep your SUVs on the road.
Perhaps we could cut back on the world's global need.
India and China will push the planet's requirements from 73 million to 90 million barrels a day by 2020. OPEC's share of total global production will rise to 60%, dominating the world energy market, and the United States of America will be forced to put its hands in its pockets and give the Saudis more and more of your gross national product. You could say the US is in a seller's market and you're the buyer.
What do you suggest?
Adding Syria and Iraq together and creating a new Saudi Arabia.
Perhaps we have already considered this possibility.
Yes, I notice you and the British have been busy in both West Africa and the Caspian region.
You shouldn't believe everything you read in the newspaper.
200 billion barrels believed to be below the Caspian Basin didn't turn out to be the real figure, did it? That is why certain oil companies are losing a great deal of money out there.
Those numbers are usually kept secret.
But I know, and so do you, that the Caspian contains a mere 40 billion barrels. Nowhere near the quantity you were expecting.
You have a plan? Just hypothetically, of course.
If Iraq were to be released from its OPEC quotas, and its 11% of the world's resources joined to Syria's 5%, a flood of cheap product could only aid and assist the US economy in the lean times to come.
Burst OPEC into pieces? I like your thinking, Allie. I like your thinking.
The rising cost of oil, David. Can you afford to do otherwise?
Figures tell many different stories. To some they present great opportunity, to others despondency. They can go up as easily as they can decline. With figures, nothing is ever as it seems, and the full picture becomes increasingly impossible to grasp. As with a magician, while the world watches one hand, they do not see what the other is doing, and so it is with us. Due to political meddling in the 1980s, it became difficult for us to engage in our policies with regard to Syria. American and European hostages in Beirut made it impossible for us to weaken the Soviet ties to that country. But today, the world is a different place. And with the fall of Baghdad, our hand can now be felt across that entire region in only a matter of minutes.
A number of years ago, you left your country and the repression of President Hafiz al-Assad and found your way here. Those of us sympathetic to your cause planned for your return, using the White House as the springboard for just such an operation. However, time threw up Libya and then the First Gulf War, and I'm ashamed to say, before we knew it, we were replaced by another administration that did not care about the needs of your country. And I am here to tell you that the current administration cares about your country in a most passionate way.
What are you telling me, David?
I'm here to tell you the plan is back on.
What do you propose?
There will soon be what is called in Washington circles a leadership alteration within your country. We are looking for candidates to fill the soon-to-be vacant positions.
Which positions do you have in mind?
Certain seats in the Syrian government.
Perhaps you could be a little more specific. My hearing is not what it once was.
Head of the military, foreign minister, finance minister, and minister of the interior. Just to be starting with, is that specific enough?
And what of the president himself?
President Bashar will either remain in place with you as his closest advisor,
or
Syria may need a new president.
How do you know this will come to pass? My country's government has not done anything to warrant the change that you are talking about.
Before long, your country will openly defy the will of the international community. Then, not even the will of Allah will be able to stop the whirlwind of change.
Today, OPEC supplies 28% of global production, but by 2010, it will be 40%. The last time the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries had that kind of power was in the 1974 oil embargo. Power to an organization that could, at any time, become deeply anti-American. Perhaps you could tell me more of this change.
You will fly to Tel Aviv, and from there to the Golan Heights. As the old administration leaves, you will pass them at the checkpoint and be in place before the citizens in your capital even know there has been a leadership alteration. This way your country will never be without a government, and we will not see any of the looting we had in Baghdad. But you must be ready to move. That move must be soon.
You already have things in motion.
Will you do it?
What will you desire in return for your assistance?
You know what we need.
5% of tears shed by the devil on a daily basis.
Then we are in agreement? Because from here on, there is no turning back.
Let it commence, David, and let Allah's will be done.
Allah, my friend, will have nothing to do with it.
Terrorism is, of course, nothing new. Disaffected groups have always been on the edge of radical politics. This is no bad thing. It has saved us from having to create them ourselves. Most terrorist groups, however, are not foolish. They are stupid. Well-trained and motivated, usually, although not always, by the West, they do tend, through their actions, to fulfill a Western agenda. It is the lack of credible political ideas that has become these groups' inspiration and drive for such attacks on national governments. And while the citizens count the dead and the injured, we simply position ourselves for the next stage of this beautifully managed game.